Would you have done anything differently in the financial sector, firstly?
No, I don't think so.
No?
When Samias was not a wild sort of turning out of bright ideas. He's a very careful industrialist, once a cabinet minister in the Dutch government. He was advisor to Portugal, but the Portuguese didn't take his advice, so he gave them up. He came here, and we took his advice. He came for a year. We found him very useful, practical, pragmatic. So we continued the association, and every year he came. I think until the late 1980s, when his wife was ailing and he couldn't come anymore. But every year he would come, spend 2 weeks. He would also read the Straits Times every day. SIA would deliver him the Straits Times every day to find out how our economy is going by reading the classified advertisement wanted column, and he could say, look, you're running short of this, that, and the other. Very shrewd man.
And a quick one, how would you rate the results? Sort of A+, A-, B+, you know?
Well, you know, the Singapore government always takes a very conservative view when it rates itself. If we're going to make 9%, we'd rather make 7 and put out 7 than clear the hurdle and make 8 or 9. When you say I'm going to make 10 and you can't make 7 or 8, then you lose credibility. And if you ask me how would I rate myself, I would say A-. We could do better.
Yeah. Remember, you continue to play an active role in the financial sector. You know, you sit on boards of international financial institutions. Can you share with us, you know, sitting on the boards of these institutions and witnessing the events of 2007, 2008? I mean, what was it like? How did you feel as you experienced the crash of 2007, 2008? And did you have any inkling that it was coming?
Well, I was regularly going to London, checked up with OCBC, and in New York I had regular meetings with JP Morgan and Citibank. I would say the problem started with Alan Greenspan. He was an optimist. I used to meet him as chairman of the Fed. I said, you've got a bubble, according to Stephen Roach, who was Morgan Stanley economic advisor, and he wrote very logical pieces analyzing why it was a bubble. So he said, no, we've got...
Sorry, you told Alan Greenspan there was a bubble?
He did not agree with me. He says, it's increase in productivity that's causing all this. And while you may have a bubble in New York, you won't have one elsewhere, and so on. It's a big country. I think that was the beginning. And it became worse when the fund managers pushed the envelope. And they had derivatives. And here, not only Greenspan, but Congress did not want to oversee the derivatives. They didn't want to regulate it, which I think was a grave mistake. So the fund managers combined toxic assets with good assets and spread it around to not so sophisticated bankers in Europe and Japan. Fortunately, most of the bankers in Asia considered themselves too ignorant to go into these things, so we were spared because of our ignorance. But that caused the crash. It was pushing the envelope too far, and had Greenspan and the Congress decided to regulate it, all these derivatives, and make the person who issued it, the first derivative, responsible, I don't think it would have happened. But it's happened. So now Paul Volcker says, let's not allow banks to use clients' money to do investment banking. You do just banking. And if you want to take your clients' money and go into the market, then you are an investment bank and they are two separate entities. I think there's merit in that. But of course, U.S. Congress is divided. The Senate has put in some clause about restricting banks from going into investment banking, but the House of their bill is not the same as the House of Representatives, where they didn't have this clause. So I expect there will be a joint meeting to try and reconcile them. There's a chance that Americans, being what they are risk takers. They always believe tomorrow is a sunny day and this is the way to gather more harvest. I don't know. We'll wait and see.
But coming back to what you said just now, are you saying that it was largely a regulatory failure?
It was originally a regulatory failure because there was no regulation. Therefore, the people who managed these funds pushed the envelope and in a clever way mixed up bad assets with good assets and sold it to Europe, maybe some to Japan. I think some went to Japan. And China and the rest of Asia didn't buy any. But that was enough to cause a tremendous collapse.
Subsequent to the crash, what did you think of the government responses to the crash? Did they do the right things? Should they have done things differently?
Well, I'm not in a position to pass judgment there. All I'm willing to say is that by that time, Tim Geithner was the Treasury Secretary, and his job was to make sure that the American economy does not tank. Therefore, they put liquidity into the market. That was followed suit by the Europeans, so that prevented a total collapse. Supposing they had done the opposite. At that time, the chairman of the Fed was Bernanke. And Bernanke's thesis for his PhD was the Great Crash of 1938, yes. I can't remember now, 32, 38. So he was determined that it would not be repeated. So he urged the Treasury and I suppose the European bankers to flood the liquidity, restore confidence, and make the debts less big. Supposing they had taken the opposite line in the 1930s and went back to the gold standard, in which case the debts became heavier, then the world would have been in depression for umpteen years.
So you think they did generally the right thing?
Well, it got us out of a big jam, but at the same time, it reduced the value of money. It reduced the value of your debts. That's how they got out of it.